Welcome back to a Doxa Logic Table Talk episode, and I am joined by Bree Harn.
Hello.
How you doing, Bree?
I'm so good.
Good.
I'm excited for today.
Me too. And we are joined by the one and only Katie Nolan.
Yay.
How are you, Katie?
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So glad you're here. Katie's worked at Doxa for 2.5 years, just about by now. And I got a great subject to cover today on Table Talk. So, Bree, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Today, Katie's on the podcast with us because we're going to talk about singleness in the church. And Katie, you and I have talked about this a lot just as friends and coworkers. And
we have.
Yeah. Just the series we went through as a church in 1 Corinthians, coming out of chapter 7, just the reality that some folks have the gift of marriage and some have the gift of singleness. And then you in particular have really been encouraging to me just to watch like a Christian woman living out her faith with such intention and purpose. So
yeah, just even thankful for this conversation to be happening, to be honest. We talk a lot about marriage and family, and I think likewise, we should be talking about singleness too. There's a lot of people in that boat, so glad to be talking about it.
And speaking of those people, the single folks in our church, what is an encouragement you would give to people living out their faith while they're single?
Yeah, good question. And I think, well, even just with limited time, obviously there could be way more said and encouraged to people who are also single like myself, so unmarried, don't have like an immediate family in that way right now. And so I think one of my encouragements is just we as single folks have a specific type of flexibility and availability, I think schedule-wise or time-wise, but in addition to that, just even relational capacity and emotional, the amount of relational capacity we can pour out into people's lives. And so I think my first encouragement would be just take up the opportunity, seize this opportunity as an ability to serve in a greater capacity than some of our married friends would have. And likewise, just understandably so, when you have a spouse and children that you are pouring into, you are limited in a lot of ways. And I think as a single person, I've seen just there's the flexibility that we can have in our ability to serve folks that people with immediate families do not. And I think the question is how can I use that flexibility to love and serve people right now in the season that I'm in, and not wait till when I get a family, then I'll serve, and I'll serve in this way.
Totally.
So I better look for that family right now. This is the season God has me in. And so how can I utilize that to serve the purposes of the gospel right now? And know that God in his good timing either would provide marriage or provide singleness as a good gift to me. Right. And either way, if I'm pursuing the Lord, God will be honored in that, but don't wait in order to use your flexibility to serve. And so I feel like that's one of my main encouragements to people, that just this idea of it should be a good thing for me that I'm single, and it should be a good thing for the people around me that I'm single. And so just that idea of how can I use my singleness to bless? How can I use this season to the best capacity that I can for the glory of the Lord?
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? On how did you get there?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you describe is not what I oftentimes hear.
Yeah.
That heart of pouring out in ministry and seeing it as a good thing. How did you get there?
Yeah. I think, and this maybe speaks into just people who maybe are married or who are further along, just even age-wise. I had people who were pouring into me, speaking just life and encouragement over what they see in me as a single person, not when you're married. Now, I got that too, right?
Sure.
My grandson, you really should meet him. But just the encouragement of I could see this in you. Would you serve it? Would you serve in this way? And I'm really? You'd want me to step into that role as a single person? And not wait until some validity of having a spouse would give you, or serve in this capacity, when your life looks a certain way and you're in a different season. So I feel like I had mentors in my life who were calling that out in me. And so, part of the encouragement of being here to voice that is calling that out in some of our singles in our church. That's you too, serve now, find the opportunity now, step out in faith now, to serve for the sake of the gospel. So.
Yeah.
So seeing it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Don't waste the opportunity God's given you. And there's a sense to which that should be true for all of us. Whatever the season that we're in, circumstances we're in, Don't waste the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think we can spend a lot of time just like waiting, like until this specific season of my life, I can, serve with a certain greater fervency or something. And that's just not true. He's given us today. We don't even know what tomorrow will bring. So seize the opportunity he's given us right now. And that's the specific season we find ourselves either as a married person or as a single person. Applies the same.
You mentioned earlier just like I will wait till I have a family, and just the reality of like the body of believers you've been called to, that's literally your family.
Yeah.
And I know that you and I have talked about that, like what Paul says to Titus.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of impactful for how you've considered your availability to minister really uniquely to others.
Yeah, I think there's this, another encouragement I have is just like take advantage of the opportunity that you have relationally to pour out. So we have, I think as singles, have a greater opportunity to delve into deep friendships on maybe a wider swath of people than when we're pouring into a family. And so take advantage of that. And God says, well, this is the family I planted you in. It's not like, I planted you in just your nuclear family. I planted you in the family of God. Like, just even thinking of even 1 Timothy, when he talks, do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father, younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, younger women as sisters, in all purity. Just thinking like that's how we're supposed to relate to each other, not even as distant relatives, but like this is your nuclear family. So let's treat each other as such. And just that, even the Titus verse, in chapter 1, verse 4, Paul is writing to Titus. He says, to Titus, my true child in a common faith. And it's not like, oh, hey, Sonny, writing you this letter. It's like, you're my legitimate spiritual heir. And I'm writing this letter to you to encourage you in your walk with the Lord. And so I think even as singles, like I don't have children, right? There's some singles who do have children, but I don't know, just that encouragement of like, you also have the opportunity to pour into younger people as if they were your own children and raise up spiritual heirs like that. And that's an eternal difference. You're making an eternal impact in raising up kids for raising up the next generation, and single people should dive in, I think, to that opportunity. So
yeah, it's great. What is tip is the wrong word. Just what's an encouragement for married couples that you would want to give? Matter of perspective or something to understand, even relationally with the single people in the church, right?
Yeah.
So how would you want to encourage the married couples toward relationships and really being a blessing to those singles in our church?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think one of the things is to consider family, that we are family, and so open up the life of your immediate family, your nuclear family, to the singles in the church. I think that's such a blessing. I think both ways, to be honest. I think that singles can be an incredible blessing to the life of a family. Things that parents are like, oh, I don't want to ask anybody else to do this, but it would be a gift for me to like come to your kid's birthday party or take them to school, or like that's not a part of my daily life, but that would be a gift to me to do that. And so to be included in family life like that, and then is a gift to me, and hopefully a gift to the people whose families I would step into like that, but to treat singles as such. And then I think this kind of maybe goes without saying, but not treat it as a season to fix. I think that
it does not go without saying.
Okay.
I wish it did too. But,
I think I've been the end of that sometimes. Like, praying for your husband. Like, thanks. Don't know if I'm going to have one someday, but you're welcome to pray for him.
But it's because that implies, I could fill it in, but what does that imply on your end? How would you put that when it's...
I think it implies like hurry and get there. Like this is... It further cements maybe this period of waiting. Like, so you're waiting in a season where until you get to this, then you're going to be fulfilled in a different way or something like that. When really comes down to it, our ultimate fulfillment, right? For a married person or a single is to be found in Christ. And even marriage isn't the ultimate fulfillment. It's pointing to the ultimate fulfillment of Christ and his bride, the church, that will be fully realized when he comes back for a second time. And so either way, there can be trip-ups of idolizing independence in singleness or idolizing the nuclear family, and both will fall short of the fullness and satisfaction that Jesus Christ affords us. So,
Yeah. So disclaimer, this episode is not for you to get a date.
it's not.
Disclaimer.
Please put me on that singleness episode.
Single and not ready to mingle, right, Katie?
Head down, doing the thing.
There you
Exactly.
go.
So.
There you go. Well, man, any last words, either Katie or Bree, as you just get ready to wrap up this? I've been very encouraged, and it's just so helpful to hear you articulate these
thank you.
things. And I imagine for many who will listen to this on either side, whether single or married, this is going to be really, really beneficial because it is not something that's highlighted perhaps often enough. Any last words of encouragement or?
Well, I feel like I've gleaned a ton from you just over time, just you being a dear friend of mine, and it's just helpful to have in the forefront of my mind just that the single folks in our church are very much as a part of the body as marrieds are, and then just like a way to consider them differently and love on them and minister to them. I even think that you shared a quote with me once about that there are single people in the church, and then the other people might be single one day, just for like, loss of spouse as we get older, and just the reality of like how to care well for people in the church that way. So thanks, Katie.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
To have you.
Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Doxologic, a podcast by Doxa Church in Rockland, California. To learn more, visit doxachurch.net.